try and stick to the script a bit more this time, so it'll make a bit more sense, I hope. The first three examples I'm going to show you are going to look at distance learning as a support for inclusion. And in fact, in these three examples, in each case, we're looking at young people with medical needs who, for reason of their illness, which might be short or long term, are finding it challenging, if not impossible, to be at school. So this example is looking at how technology provides often both educational and social inclusion. And the first example, all of which are on the website, is from Belgium, Flemish Belgium, and it's a project called BedNet. You may have heard of it. It's not a new initiative. It's been established in 2007, and it supports, at the moment, I think they started with a relatively small number, but at the moment, about 155 young people are supported using this system. They are supporting children at the age of between the lost all the power. someone wind me up. No. Well, I can see the screen, but it might be difficult with the video, so we might want to. Is it the projector? Maybe a fuse has blown on there. I'll carry on talking until we get the video, because in a sense. Okay. Okay, I'll hold then. Yeah? I can carry on. Shall I? Do you mind if I carry on? I know you can't see the slides, but I'll hold back on showing the video. Is that all right? Are you okay with that? Because this is just showing this. Yes, of course. So as I was saying, there are children and young people, adolescents aged from 6 years of age to 18 years of age, so the whole primary through to upper secondary. Does it work? Yes. 6 to 18-year-olds with either children and adolescents, so the whole schooling age range with long-term, as I mentioned, or chronic illnesses. They use the internet to retain that contact with the outside world, with the family, their friends and school, and it supports, as I mentioned, their social and educational inclusion. They also allow them, a very important aspect, as will come out later, is the participation and collaborative learning elements, something that you get in the classroom, but if you were isolated would be difficult without the use of the technology. And not just in the classroom, by using the system afterwards, after lessons. On the screen there are two images, and they are representative. They can be found on the BedNet site of the systems themselves. On the left-hand side there are two photographs, one of a young man that I will be showing in the video in a moment. On the right-hand side, I suppose it depends which way you're looking at it, but from there is a computer, and you'll see there's a scanner printer, which is also used to link. So at home, the young person has a computer, webcam, printer scanner and headset, and in the classroom there's also a computer, a mobile camera, which can be controlled from the home, not from the classroom, a printer scanner and speakers and headphones. On the second image, there's a representation of the classroom as it's seen by the tool that BedNet provides for the young person. So on the screen there's a small video window, which is his view into the classroom. There's a image of what's effectively a whiteboard, which is a shared area where he can put information. There's a library of resources that he can access to support his learning when he isn't in the classroom. There's his personal library space, so very much like a learning platform. And then there are some controls, so he can turn off the sound. Wish we could do that in the classroom. Turn the sound off. So he can turn off the sound while he concentrates. He can put the speaker on so that they can hear him if he wishes to speak to the classroom. And he has controls to allow him to zoom in and out of the classroom. So I'm going to show a part of a video of a young man called Laurie, and his computer enables him to interact with his classrooms using these on-screen controls. Just to explain, I've turned the sound off because it is in Belgian, in the Belgian language. It's Flemish. I don't know how good your Flemish is, but mine is not good. So I'm assuming you do not need the sound. So we're just going to show the images, and I shall talk over some of the video. In fact, I'm going to move on because the first part of it is just encountering a program when I'm playing. We'll try again, shall we? Maybe I won't zoom it on because that's obviously causing a problem with it. So just to explain, it's the classroom, as you can see. It's a fairly ordinary little file, but we'll give it one more go, and if not, we might try going online onto the internet and seeing it live on YouTube. Nothing like challenging the technology to the full, is there? So I'm going to try that. Yeah. Not going to risk scanning it, sorry. So classroom, in a moment we'll see young man Laurie accessing the classroom. As you can see in the background there is the computer screen and it flashes to indicate that he's present in the classroom. Here is the young man at home. He has a medical condition. I believe he is recovering from cancer treatment. And you can see in the background the technology that he uses. That's his virtual presence in the classroom. And the class is fairly ordinary. As you can see, they're using pencils, pens, they're chewing them, and they're using a traditional blackboard. I won't show well, that may be useful to show the interface that he's got there, but I won't show the rest of the video. It's fair to say that what you'd see in the second part of the video is a young adolescent girl using the system, but from a hospital bed, because she's in hospital and accesses her education, not from home, but actually from hospital. So we can see the advantages of that, but looking at a second example provided by Portugal, Telealua, they use a system of distance learning to support young people in hospital situations. And again, it is used to maintain contact with their fellow students, often during longer stays, and with their friends and classmates. Now, the benefits, as I mentioned, for the students are those of being able to maintain contact, but I just want to mention the benefits for the teachers as well, because it's good that the child is benefiting from the use of the system, but I suspect these systems will not be adopted if there were not benefits for the teaching situation as well. And for the teachers, there's a benefit of being able to provide, they have access in Portugal to an online community. So the teachers also share experiences on the online community of their techniques and the pedagogy they're using around teaching, learning, and young people with medical needs. They can also, using that technology, link with mainstream schools, because most of the young people are not in isolated special settings, but are in mainstream settings. So there's a link there between the mainstream school and often the special school as well. And yes, they basically use it to share ways in which they can provide support. I'll move on now to a third example. Again, same sort of circumstance. And this is from the United Kingdom, from Belfast in Northern Ireland. And here it's extended in a slightly different way, which I think is quite important. They use a learning platform, as in Portugal, but here they use it very much to deliver learning modules that are accredited, that get examinations and credits towards formal examinations in that way. And they use a national learning platform. So across all schools in Northern Ireland, there is a procured national learning platform with a whole range of services, and all schools access them. And so do those young people with medical needs in hospital schools. The benefits are obvious. They have opportunity if you are feeling not well, maybe after a long day like today, or if you have medical needs. You may wish to study in the early evening, or when you are not feeling too bad because of maybe taking medication. So you actually want to do that anytime, anywhere learning. And by the provision of a learning platform, the young person may choose to study, not accessing the classroom, but accessing a learning module in the early evening or early morning, when they feel well to study. And the self-learning materials and the modules enable to engage in it and do the learning in the way which suits them. They can also interact with their peers as well. The benefits are clear. Online contact promotes their self-esteem and their confidence. It helps them face the challenge then of meeting face-to-face, because if you're isolated from your peers, going back into the classroom can be quite a daunting task. It encourages independent learning. I know that may be a challenge for some learners, but it gives them the opportunity to challenge those skills, to develop those skills, but then also when the class is available to get support. And it develops study, teamwork, and ICT skills. I'd like to move on to a different example now, and we may, but there again we may not, show a video, depending on if the technology wants to be supportive. But talking of support, in Sweden for 10 years now, they have had Skoldatatech. The good thing is I may have said that right, I may not, but we will not know, will we? So Skoldatatech for 10 years is the provision of a local service in a municipality which provides access to specialist teachers who understand technology to support those young people with special educational needs. And as of now, 50% of the municipalities have a Skoldatatech service in place. And that service provides support for schools around the use of technology to support reading and writing. Often probably the most prevalent area of special educational needs across the piece, a high incident issue for most countries and for most schools. And the service provides expertise that supports not only the individual in the school through an assessment process, but supports the schools themselves to establish systems to provide the support for the young people that need it, to support training for the teachers as well, and also their families. So it's a fully integrated service providing all those people that care about and want to support the education of young people. We might see Frederick in a moment, but if we don't see him, let me say a little bit about him. Frederick is in the secondary school and he hasn't been making the progress that was expected. His behaviour is not good because he is frustrated. A teacher notices this problem and basically gets in touch with the Skoldatatech, and between them, working with the parent, they come up with a solution. They then continue to work with the school, not just to help that one teacher, but get all the teachers understand the use of this quite simple technology. I suspect it's available in all your schools, or if not, will be soon. Very simple software, but it needs to be used across the whole school to support the child. He doesn't stay in one class, he needs that support around reading and writing in all the lessons. And fingers crossed, let's just go online and see if we can have a quick look at the video. Again, I put the sound down, it's in Swedish, but we have some English subtitles which may help once we make the internet connection. Yes. In fact, you'll see we're on a website called Inclusive Education in Action. It's not going to get anything right. No, I think we're there. On YouTube. Thank you. And thank you to my glamorous assistant. You didn't hear that, did you? My glamorous assistant. So the text here will be talking about Frederick, who lives outside a city in Sweden. I'm not going to risk the pronunciation. And it's about accessibility. So the first part of the video talks about the fact that he is a normal young man, for all intention purposes, enjoys sport. He's good at hockey, he's good at skiing. I think you have to be good at skiing to get to school, don't you, in Sweden? Just guessing. And here, so I could risk, I'll risk moving that on a little bit. So you can see now Frederick in class. He's obviously a very normal young man, chatting with the young ladies, getting a lot of attention and quite liking it. But you can see in the classroom he has some technology to support him. He has a computer, and attached to it, if I just pause it for a moment, you can see he's got a handheld scanner. So he's scanning that over the words, and that's going into the computer, and he's then able to hear the words being spoken. It highlights the text and supports his reading. The subtitle is saying it that he's been struggling at school. He's actually a little bit frustrated that the school hadn't noticed he had these problems and he didn't feel that he got the support he needed. It's a good news story, essentially, because now he is getting the support he needs and is progressing and has caught up with his peers. So the essence of that was having a local support service, a network. And in Portugal, they have special resource centres, but these don't just focus on reading and writing, they focus on support for special educational needs. There are 25 regional centres in mainland Portugal. Again, they work closely with schools, teachers, learners and their families, and they provide assessment services, but also they provide a lot more around continued professional development, training and support, either in the centres themselves, at a distance using video, and open source software for communication like web chats and distance training. And they use a blended learning approach. Final example is quite different, and there's going to be some sound on this, and I do apologise for those people who will not be able to hear the sound, but I'll explain its relevance to those that will be able to hear it in just a moment. So those people who won't be able to hear it, I apologise. In Scotland, for some time now, they've been working towards that real challenge about it's all very well having accessible teaching and learning, but in most cases what counts for young people and their parents and, dare I say, teachers, is a qualification at the end. But what if that examination is not accessible? Now, rather than making the sort of concessions whereby they might use human intervention, in Scotland they looked to see if they could use the technology. And what they basically using are accessible PDFs, something that my colleague has spoken about earlier, that enables them to have the paper spoken to them and for them to write into that their answers. In 2002, so just last year, 1 in 3 of the secondary schools across Scotland now use this as a way in which people with reading and writing difficulties in particular can access examinations. And that's been proved possible because of the work of a centre making sure that Adobe Acrobat, which is very common, is fully accessible using Adobe Acrobat Pro. And something that they found very important as well is that the voice that spoke to the young person, and it's something that I think that's also important, if you use technology as your voice to speak, it was important to them that they had speech software that spoke in their accent. So it spoke in English, but with a Scottish accent. And just to show you a Scottish accent, I'll do that again.
and listen to Scottish curriculum resources spoken using a Scottish synthetic voice. The Scottish Government has funded Call Scotland to provide a Scotland-wide schools licence for Heather, a CD from Call Scotland. Heather is free to Scottish schools and support services, and pupils can also install the voice on home computers. Once installed on your computer, you can use...
Now, what wasn't important was what she was saying. So thank you for translating, but but it was actually the fact that you could hear, I expect you're all very familiar with the Scottish accent, you could hear the intonation and that voice. I could talk forever, but Amanda's given me that look. But you will know, will you not, that how important voice is to a young person, and therefore the use of a proper voice, male voice or a female voice, or even a digitized synthetic voice, is down to the young person's choice. So actually having the choice to hear it in Scottish, having a male voice or a female voice as a teenager, having a young voice is quite important. So I wanted to highlight that, but also highlight how it's being used in the context of the exam systems in Scotland. And that's me done. So I shall hand over to my other glamorous assistant, Amanda.